All right, joining us on the program right now. Very pleased to have with us from Officer.com, Editor-in-Chief Frank Borelli. Frank, good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
Oh, I'm laughing because I don't know what else to do, Frank. If I did not maintain my sense of humor these days, what little hair I have, actually I recently shaved, but I would be pulling out my hair.
Well, I don't worry about it. I have the proper dosage of iodine tablets here at my house for me, my wife, and my son because, lo and behold, we live, 6 miles from the closest nuclear power plant to Washington, D.C., so it's a reality of life, and we don't have to worry about Japan. It's right here.
All right, I wanted to ask you about this story I saw. I thought this was absolutely fascinating to me. In Dayton, Ohio, the city's Civil Service Board and the U.S. Department of Justice have agreed on a lower passing grade for the police entrance exam because when they gave the test the last time, not enough African Americans passed. And so now they have actually lowered both written exams a combined 15 points that resulted in 258 more people passing the exam. The original passing scores determined by civil service required candidates to answer 57 of 86 questions correctly on one portion and 73 of 102 on the other. That's 66 and 72%. The lowered benchmark requires 58% and 63% would be a passing grade. What I find fascinating about this, Frank, is that the local FOP has come out against this, and the local NAACP has also come out against this, both of them, in essence, saying this is wrong. We don't agree with this. We don't like this. We don't think this is the right thing to do. I'm curious what your take is.
Well, if I'm correct, and I've tried to do the research and I was not able to find the dates, if I'm correct, Dayton's not the first city to have done this.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that our nation's capital did this a few decades ago when they were trying to up their minority numbers on the police department. Now, I'm in complete agreement with the FOP and the NAACP, and in fact, when I was on Facebook earlier and I put up a post saying I was going to be on your show tonight and this is what we were going to talk about, you should have seen the comments.
Oh, really?
Nobody agrees with this. And the general thought is this. You think about it. Do you want somebody who, if you put this in high school terms, A is 91 to 100, B 81 to 90, so on. So you're looking at somebody who can get a 58% on an entrance exam. Number one, what kind of success rate are you going to have in the academy? Because they're still going to have to pass the academy. But number two, do you want somebody who can barely get they get 58%? That's their passing grade, but now we're going to trust them to make life and death decisions in compressed time frames, and then be able to articulate after the fact why they did so in a clear and intelligent fashion. The FOP, obviously, they don't agree with this. They want to have higher levels of professionalism, and I'm 100% with that. The NAACP really does surprise me with this. The only way I can think of that they're against this is that they find it insulting.
Here's the quote. Dayton NAACP President Derek Forward says, quote, "The NAACP does not support individuals failing a test and then having the opportunity to be gainfully employed. If you lower the score for any group of people, you're not getting the best qualified people for the job."
That sounds like common sense.
Yeah.
Are you sure that's what they said?
That's the quote. That's the quote.
I got to agree with them. But this isn't anything new. Ever since there's a lot of agencies and places where there aren't many minorities, and they fight to get the 10% that's required by the Equal Opportunity Employment Commission, and then you have other agencies that are in minority-rich places. There's some places in and around D.C. area where Caucasians are actually the minority.
Mm-hmm.
And, they fight to get jobs, but, the same rules aren't applied in reverse. So
yeah,
I don't know that anybody that's for it, Cam. My outlook would be, and I've said this too in the military, when you go into the Army or the Marine Corps or whatever, you take the ASVAB, the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery.
Right.
And to be a military policeman requires one of the highest scores on the ASVAB. I think the one when I went in, and I won't tell you how long ago it was, I'd be embarrassing myself, but when I went in, the only thing that required a higher grade than being an MP was if you wanted to be a nuclear, biological, chemical weapons specialist. I want those guys to have really high grades.
Yeah, no kidding.
But MP was second highest on the list. You had to score like 86% or something on the test to be an MP because of the judgment and everything else that was involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
It amazes me that in the civilian sector they constantly, or not constantly, but they have lowered the standards to get people in. Now, again, that doesn't mean those people are ever going to make it to the street. Can they pass the academy? Can they meet all the academic and other qualifications? Who knows?
Right, but again, I mean that. You can say, well, look, we're going to let them in the academy, but that doesn't mean they're going to end up on the street. Law enforcement,
your tax dollars being spent really well.
Exactly, in law enforcement across this country, dealing with budget cuts, dealing with departmental issues. That is an egregious waste of money to say, well, look, we're just going to let them in, and then they're going to have to fend for themselves. Get the most qualified candidates.
The other side of that, and you have the whole argument, and again, we've all agreed on Facebook anyway that we need to do away with all the lawyers. Shakespeare was right. But if you don't, you have the situation where you don't have enough minorities pass the test. You start an academy class, somebody files a lawsuit, and then you have an entire academy class that gets dumped so that they can get it filled with the appropriate number of minorities. And to some extent, I think a lot of this is liability management or lawsuit avoidance or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
It's risk averse, whatever. And they're trying to cut problems off before they can get there. Now, the funny thing is what nobody's talking about. Let's say you have 250 people take this test that actually pass it, and they're only going to take 20 people to put them in an academy. So you had to have enough pass the test, and you had to have a large enough portion be the minority, but you're only going to take the top 20 people that pass the test anyway. So, those guys all scored 92% and above.
Yeah.
So everybody from 58 to 92, they made you look good on paper. They gave you justification when you went ahead your academy class. You had to have enough people qualify, but you still only took the top 20 qualified applicants. Does it really matter whether the guy got a 58 or 72? Some people would argue that it don't, but then by that same logic, then who cares? Just let's say everybody passed the test if they can spell their name right, and we'll take the top 20 applicants.
I believe you've just articulated the Department of Justice's next proposal here. Just everybody passes. Why have tests? Really, tests are just.
We can't insult people. We can't tell people that they are below average in intelligence. We can't call people any of those nasty words they teach us not to call them in school. I mean, you can't call them stupid or dumb or any of that stuff.
That's right. You have not failed the test if you because nobody fails it. It's just delayed success.
You've learned how not to pass it in this fashion. Now you get another attempt.
Well, I am glad to know, at least, Frank, that so far the only people you can find that are in support of this policy actually appear to be the folks at the Department of Justice who have put this policy in place.
And I'd be willing to bet they're lawyers.
You're probably right. Hey, Frank, as always, sir, glad you could be with us on the program. Glad you're stocked up on iodide tablets, and stay safe. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Cam. Have a good one.
Frank Borelli, the editor-in-chief of Officer.com, joining us here on Cam and Company.